I hope you enjoy this episode of Why Get Wasted? Innovative Solutions to Climate Change. Today I'm speaking with Amelia Trumble of Retold Recycling. So tell us a little about yourself and what Retold Recycling does and what your background.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me, Liz. I'm really happy to be on the podcast today. As you said, my name's Amelia. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Retold Recycling. We're a clothing and textile recycling service that on the consumer side, you can do from your home with our super convenient bags that you order from our website. Fill up with all of your unwanted clothing and textiles from your home, pop in the post, and then we give all of your clothes a second life and make sure that nothing ends up in landfills. And then we also do a whole lot of work with brands and corporates for their textile recycling programming as well.
So someone would have extra clothes, that they've worn out or they don't want anymore, or something's ripped or extra pieces of fabric, and order a bag through you and send it back. And then,
yeah, exactly.
And so what do you do with the pieces? You said you do different things, just as long as they end up out of a landfill.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a variety of recycling partners that we work with behind the scenes now, but the main two workflows that we have is the contents of the bags or our collections are sorted, and around 40% of those items are able to be resold through thrift stores. So they go on to be resold and have a second life. Even if things like might have rips or tears or be missing a button, like they do have a currency within the thrift store channels, especially because thrifting has become so popular over the last couple of years, especially since COVID. Even those items that you might not want to repair, other people are really happy to, so they can go to thrift stores. And then the rest of the items are generally broken down into a pulp, which in the industry is called shoddy. And that sort of like pulp material is, pressed into sheets or made into a bulk that can be used in the inside of car seats for insulation. One of my favorites is the inside of punching bags. So there's a variety of uses now. And the great thing is, like, not only are we decreasing textiles that are going to landfill, it also means that we're not having to create virgin fibers or virgin materials for those, filling purposes. We're using that, recycled material instead. So, yeah, and there's more and more uses of it coming out all the time, which is very exciting for us.
And how do you choose what goes to landfill, what goes to thrift shops? Is that you guys choose? Do the thrift stores choose?
It's really our recycling partners who do all of the sorting. They're finely tuned to what they think can sell. They look for the good stuff that they can take. The convenient factor of Retold is that, you can put everything in your bag. So some people might have a resale platform that they use, like Poshmark. They might donate some things to charity stores. Which is totally cool with us. And then you can give us everything else. Or if you want to be super convenient, which a lot of people, choose this route, they put everything into their retail bag. So we even get things that are new with tags that have never been worn because, people like to buy a lot of stuff. I'm a bit of a shopper myself. The team will go through and sort everything for what can be resold in thrift stores. So they have a good time going through the bags.
Oh, fun. And now, so what percentage of clothes? I've heard that a lot that go into thrift stores that don't sell end up in landfills. Is that true, or is that one of those kind of horror eco myths?
Honestly, it's generally not through the fault of the charity, entity themselves. It's just that a lot of things get dumped there that, people think they're doing the right thing. But if the item is most likely not able to be resold, it's not really additive to their work stream and, just frankly, probably cost them money. So yeah, a lot of items through that, through charity stores, do end up in landfill per the data that we've seen. With a lot of the thrift stores that we work with that are more privately owned, those items are generally like if they don't sell in the thrift store, then they go back to the recycling channels. So it would just go back to the sorting facility that it came from our workflow, and then be downcycled. So the partners that we work with, it's all sort of like a contained in the one network. So that's where we have the safety net of, feeling comfortable that things aren't ending up in landfills, because if they don't sell, then they just go back to the downcyclers in the same process.
And I'm actually so curious though, why do the stores, the secondhand stores that can't sell the pieces, why don't they recycle them and why do they toss them?
Well, I mean, obviously that's not our core business, so I can't 100% speak to it, but from what I understand, it's just, it costs money. Everyone's paying for that service. It's not something that exists out there for free. And, it just might not be something that they can sustain, which is unfortunate. It'd be amazing if we had all of these government programs out there that, could do this work for us. But until that day, and while people are still, throwing out their old undies, and contributing to landfill, I think, there's a place for companies like Retold to chip in and help out, and especially help educate consumers, because, there's so many customers, I think, who are coming to us every day who even yesterday might have been like, hang on a second, I didn't realize that actually putting my single sock or my old pair of underpants or that, sweaty gym shirt that I just like can't bear to launder again in the trash is like actually doing a bad thing. So, I think that it's really important to sort of educate people on what's happening out there and the broader problem.
Can all fabrics be recycled?
So that's a very good question. It depends on the partners that we work with in terms of what gets broken down. There's definitely some things that are more challenging, which you would expect. So leather, for example, is harder to put through a machine to break down. The good news is that if you put an old leather jacket into one of our retail bags, there'd actually be a very high resale demand for that in thrift stores. So likely that would end up in somebody else's closet, which is cool. So, in the short term, we don't have to worry so much about recycling. But there's definitely things that are very challenging to recycle. Things that have like fire retardant patches, things that like are high vis patches and things tend to be sort of more industrial and hard to break down. Things that may have been coated in like oil or thick paints. And also traditionally it's been harder to recycle things like lycra or things that will heat up, and sort of have like that stretch factor. I think I can fact check this with our recycling teams, but I feel like the machines now are a bit more adept at that and we don't get so much pushback. But yeah, some fibers are a bit more complex than the rest. But the good news is that, most things are a pretty simple workflow at this point.
So I know people can buy when they're shopping, get recycled clothing or upcycled. What is the difference between recycled and upcycled?
So upcycle is where you've taken the materials and made it into, I guess, effectively another saleable good. One great example is a brand that we're partnering with called Park and Coop, and they take old unwanted denim pieces and other fabrics and make them into things like aprons or, tote bags and sort of fun gifts. So definitely check out that brand, Park and Coop. Um, and, that's a way of things that are upcycled or given another life by creating another product. Downcycling or recycling is really where you destroy the piece as it existed before, and create that kind of pulp in our workflow, as I mentioned before, and then that's, effectively used for something else. But yes, it's like a saleable kind of like industrial piece, but it's not actually like an end product available for you to buy. I think that's kind of like the easiest way to describe it.
Are there recycled fabrics that are made into fashion pieces or clothes?
Yeah, right now, there's definitely a lot of recycled fabrics that are coming more from other work streams. So, for example, like fishing nets or soft plastics can be broken down. They can be made into swimwear, for example. And that workflow is very established. There's a lot of those great fabrics out there. But what is exciting is that there are emerging fabric houses like Evernew here in the US. They're creating their own fabric out of downcycled fabrics that have been reconstituted into another material. So we are seeing more and more that there are what we call next generation fabric houses that are coming to make this cyclical for us, where we break down, fabric, break down these fibers and create new ones after the fact. But just not like terribly scalable as yet, but it's coming, which is exciting.
And so, how did you start Retold Recycling in the first place? What's the backstory and inspiration?
Terribly naively, to be honest,
I get it.
our background, the three of us who started the business is not in recycling. So I was actually living in Brooklyn at the time, just like you. And I was in a small apartment and I was renovating a car. So, I sort of had this top of mind, and that coincided with conversations that I'd had with some of my old friends and colleagues about wanting to start a business that was going to do good for the world. So those ideas sort of like meshed together, and that's how the concept of Retold was born. And when we talked about it as a team, we really felt like there was a variety of needs there. Like, I was decluttering my closets and I was a bit of a shopper, as I mentioned. So, like I like fashion, I like to get new things, and I wanted to make sure that as I was trading things out of my closet, I could dispose of them in a sustainable way. But Noelle, my business partner, she was a mum and she shopped a lot less than me, but she had all of the kids' clothes that were being outgrown in her household, or things that were just stained and couldn't be reused. So she had a need. And the more we talked about this, the more, we really saw like the white space for a very convenient solution. So we started, investigating. We contacted a few recycling companies. They were open to working with us, and they were like, yeah, when you get up and running, give us a call. So we went away and worked on our business model, worked on our branding, worked on everything from a corporate perspective. And then we were basically ready to go and do a pilot. And we went back to all of those recycling companies, and they were all like, hang on a second, you're going to send us mixed materials in a bag through the post, and we're not going to know what we're getting. And we're like, yep, that's it. That's the model. And every single one of them turned us down. So a year and a half went by, and then we finally found another recycling partner who was open to working with us in the way in which, we needed the model to work. And thankfully, we're still working with him and his team today, and we've expanded to multiple of their hubs, their sorting facilities, and it's a great relationship. So from something that was born from, our consumer need effectively and our desire to do better for the earth, we sort of went through a lot of, twists and turns to get there. And, not knowing anything about recycling, I think, to be honest, was a bit of a blessing, because we were so naive to the challenges, and we were just sort of like, no, this has to be possible. Like, how can these companies exist and we can't do this? So we kept chipping away, and we got there in the end. And yeah, we've been live and transacting since 2020. Yeah.
And originally, the recycling homes or centers had said yes. Then, as soon as you got it together, they said no. That's
Yeah, well, originally they had, because I think it's just quite uncommon for a lot of these companies to receive mixed materials. So there was a lot of like denim recyclers, or a lot of recyclers that would work only with cottons. And, they were open to talking with us in the beginning, but as we'd finessed our model and we were confident that, we didn't want to do any pre-sorting with our customers, like we wanted them to be able to put everything in their bags, or if we're doing a collection event in stores or through a council, we wanted the customers to be able to put everything in. So that was a large departure from a lot of their workflows. So that's why we were very lucky to find our current partner who has their own sorting facilities and their own manpower, because that was sort of really what we were missing.
I Right. Do you get fabrics too, excess fabrics from fashion houses or just from the end customers?
We do some of those bulk recycling deals now. However, we do have some partners who may have like smaller offcuts from runs and things like that. We do a lot with brands and corporates with samples. For example, like there's a lot of like samples that sit around in headquarters that like need a clean out every now and then. And the great thing about Retold is that we can not only take them and break it all down, but then we can give sort of the stats and the impact reporting of like what's the value of what said brand or corporate just diverted from landfills. So yeah, we actually do partner with a lot of companies that have that internal need to declutter.
And I don't know if you'd even know this stat at all, but in terms of the fast fashion, it seems the majority of people now are buying fast fashion designers such as H&M as opposed to longer lasting, more expensive pieces and then throwing them out. Do you know about how long the typical piece lasts today?
That's a good question. I mean, I'd have to do some research on that, but I mean, I can speak to my own experience. Like, at Retold, like we're very realistic in that most people shop, generally in a high-low way. Like some pieces are, sort of lower quality, something you need to grab. I have a little girl, she's going to be 5 this week, and her clothes that she wears to school, like I'm not spending lots and lots of money on those because she's just going to trash them. So I'm buying things that are cheaper sometimes too, but then I'm also buying some pieces that are more quality that I'll know will last and are more special for her. And I think we're realistic that a lot of people shop that way. So unfortunately, those items, like it's just obvious that if they're tearing or breaking down for us at home, like they're just not great quality. But the unfortunate thing is that a lot of the time they're made with polyester, for example, which does take a really, really long time to break down. So it's just like a bit of a conundrum. Unfortunately, yes, people are shopping fast fashion or lower quality pieces that are a cheaper price point. But unfortunately, a lot of the time, those things do take a long time to break down. But I do need to do some investigation. I can get some good stats on that. I'll dig them up.
Oh, sure. We can add that to the show notes. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think it's unrealistic to only wear high-end designers and long-lasting pieces. I would love to be at a financial point where I only buy really high-end. And I mean, I'm a super eco person, but realistically, I started my own company. You put money in it first. You're not making much, I mean, you
I
can't
know,
do it.
I feel you. I mean, and even then, still sometimes you can buy something that is, relatively expensive and you think is going to be great quality and last you a long time, and it actually doesn't. So I think, it can be a little bit of trial and error with some of the brands in terms of, finding something that you think is good quality and works with your lifestyle. But the exciting thing is that there's a lot more brands that are turning their minds to more sustainable fashion, or, at least working, with organic fabrics and things like that, are a little bit better for the environment.
Are there any brands you love that you suggest? I know you suggested one earlier. Are there any others you
Yeah,
think are
Park and
great?
Coop. They have beautiful gifts. We're definitely collaborating with them. We have partnered with Booty, which is a bamboo underwear company. Vitamin A Swim is a brand that we've partnered with where they have sustainable swimwear that is, quite often made from, recycled soft plastics, for example, or fishing nets. So there's some great innovation there. What are some other brands that, I mean, I shop Everlane as well. They tend to be very transparent with their practices, which is great. Even some of the, bigger brands will have releases that are more on the sustainable side, which is encouraging now. Yeah, there's a lot of, different brands out there that sort of are emerging. And I also like to think about, things in the beauty space as well. Like, how can I make more sustainable choices across all categories? Another partner that we've started working with is Plain Products, and they do a lot of refills. So not having to use like single-use plastics. So you can send the packaging back in and they'll refill it for you. So innovation like that, I think, is really exciting. So even if you can't always make 100% like the most sustainable brand choice in fashion, maybe you can err a little bit better like with your beauty products or other things from your home as well. I think it's just about trying to do better than, what you did yesterday.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that you can't do it 100%. And even if you can only do 10%, I mean, we're all busy. We've set up our whole world that everything is very fast and disposable, which is not working. But realistically, 99.9% of us can only do a small percent. I think there's that typical quote in eco, like what I forget the exact, but like we don't need a million people doing it flawlessly. We need everybody doing it like
It's a little bit.
10%,
Yeah, better.
So
Agree. I think it also really depends where you live. I mean, we chatted, before we started recording about, how you live in Brooklyn. I used to live in Brooklyn. I mean, it's just very hard when you have different footprint, if you don't have a car, if you don't, have access to composting where you live, that kind of thing. Like there are some choices that some people can make where they live because there might be the programming, or like access to brands, that kind of thing. It's just very hard. Like that's why we felt very strongly about having Retold run through the post because that's really accessible to everyone. But yeah, as you said, like if you can just make some small choices in your home, like moving in the right direction, I think is what's important. And, supporting each other in those choices. Like if your friend started, a new composting habit, or, they've invested in a soda stream because they're not going to buy, cans of bubbly water anymore. I think that's great. Like let's celebrate those moves. I'm with you.
yeah. And it definitely is easier some places than others. Like definitely in Brooklyn, I'm spoiled with how easy it is. There are, so many thrift stores that are very stylish and affordable. I mean, of course, you have the secondhand clothes that are absolutely unaffordable. You go to the very high end or even the auction
Yeah.
houses, like you'll get the highest of high end at like a
Yeah.
Sotheby's auction house down to just, finding like really good designer and great stylish pieces for like $10. It takes a
Yeah.
little bit of luck, but you can, you know, uh, do you, and have you noticed changes in people's habits? Do you feel more and more people are becoming more conscious of these
100%.
habits?
Yes, 100%. I mean, that is probably the most exciting thing about running Retold on a day-to-day basis is just the feedback we get and So I'd say in the 4 years that we've been operational, we can definitely feel that there is like an increasing tide of people that are looking to recycle and more aware of their own impact and footprint around their choices, which is great.
Now, if someone can only do, let's say they are on a budget, time, and money, like most
Mhm.
of us, what would you say is five, just the top 5% or top small things that you would consider most important for them to do to have a positive impact on climate?
So I definitely, like we've talked about, try and switch out for some items that aren't necessarily going to actually be that much more expensive, but may not have all of the packaging. So things like, you can get a lot of cleaning products now where, the packaging is reusable. You can just get like little tabs, like brands like Blue Land, for example, drops from for laundry products, things like that, I think is a good switch, and then not really that much more expensive than more mainstream brands. Definitely composting, I think, is a great one. If you can not add all of your scraps um, to your trash, and if you're in an urban area, like most Whole Foods will have a compost bin that you can tap into there, which is great. Looking at how you can recycle soft plastics. So unfortunately, we are still going to come across the odd plastic bag. Does your bread come in, a plastic bag? Like any way in which you can recycle those soft plastics is great. I think buying local, so go to your local farmer's market, buy a beautiful loaf of bread on a Saturday morning in a paper bag, is probably a much more sustainable choice and probably beautiful for your tummy as well, compared to more processed foods. Um, where else? I mean, I could like go on endlessly about this. A big one for me is utilizing something like a soda stream and switching out for products where you can reuse, carrying your own tote bag when you go shopping. That's one of the reasons why we launched our Retold tote bag, is just to remind people that, carry something reusable when you are going shopping, and don't get those extra packaging items. Yeah, and then obviously, one retail bag, if you want to start your at-home recycling practice, is 15.50, which is, not within everyone's reach, but for some people it might be an okay place to start. And you can just, slowly sort of add to it over time. And I think that's a great way to sort of start training your behavior to think about all of the things that maybe you have thrown out in the past, and you can gather those up. Like I know when you shop, sometimes you'll get things in a beautiful like fabric little baggie or something. And if you're not using it, those can just like hang out at home. So like even just being able to have a place for those sort of like random odds and ends, is a good one. So that's a few switches for you. But honestly, we could have talked the whole podcast about that. I love talking
Right.
about switches.
Me too. Me too. It's one of the things I'm always trying to think more about.
Yeah. Is there
And
anything that you're doing that I need to pick up? Any ideas from you?
oh God, I mean, it sounds like you're doing most of them. I actually use plain.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of little refillable zero waste stores. I I mean, I feel like a lot of the typical stuff, like I bring a cup everywhere for my coffee. We've found a lot of milks here that ethically treat their cows, and they're in glass reusable bottles. So I bring those and drop them off. When I get to go now, I go into the store. And again, this is like probably not as easy wherever you are, but in New York with like the 10 little stores right there. And I'm like, oh, I'll want to eat this. I'll drop off my container in the store and then go pick it back up, or ask them, if
Yeah,
they can do that for delivery. And then
yeah,
just the easy, like if you're ordering in for delivery, be really clear to say you do
no
not
utensils.
need silverware. Like they why I cannot for the life of me understand why they put all that plastic silverware. They're delivering it to your home. You
I
own
agree. I agree.
silverware.
It like
So
literally hurts my heart when I'll make a point to say, please don't include, I'm good. And then, it's just like, I'm sure it's just rote for them as they're like packing the orders, they include it. And I'm like,
Right.
no, like,
Exactly.
it hurts my
Yes.
heart. But yeah, that's a good switch. We should all be doing that, quite frankly.
Yeah, and that takes no effort. Just
Yeah,
put in your order right in. And I think a lot of it, I feel like the biggest obstacle we're against are just rote habits. Like people, it's
I agree.
so habitual. So, I mean, I'll notice it with friends of mine. I mean, I can't, this is like my job. So I'm thinking about it all the time. So, of course, people who work in this it's going to be more embedded in our awareness. But I'll have friends who will, you know, be coming to meet me and ask me about my business. And they're like, oh, let me run in and get a coffee. And they'll come out and they're like, oh, I forgot to ask them for a refillable cup. And that's normal because our default right now, and no one should be made to feel bad about this. It's just something we have to start thinking about. Our default is disposable, and disposable just doesn't work. It just doesn't, you know?
I know. I know. I'm with you. Like, it is so interesting to me to just even conversations with people, like you're saying, this is your job, obviously this is my job too, but just in the course of, dialogue where people are like, oh, yeah, I mean, I'm donating, like I'm doing the right thing, I'm like decluttering and,
Mhm.
but you know, as if I couldn't like put my underpants in the trash. Like that surely you have to put those in the trash. And it's like, no, stop, stop. Like it's
Mhm.
just, really just people have like, grown up like not really being that aware of what the impact is. And now there's great solutions out there to make those changes. So I'm with you,
Yeah.
like we just need to keep chatting with everyone we know and spreading the word. And the great thing is, sort of in our space, I feel like there's so many kind-hearted people that like once they find a service they beautiful plane being able to refill those products, like you tell everyone because it's just such a no-brainer, right? And that's what we really feel a love on that front with Retold too.
I'm so glad because I love the idea. And, I'm thinking definitely I could see collaborations and using it in the future. My main job with Why Get Wasted is we work with productions like photo shoots, fashion shows, films to help them be more sustainable and events in general. But we have lately, my background is actually in fashion. So there's, I was
Mhm.
so excited to talk to you. We
Yes, we
work,
definitely need a sidebar.
yeah, yeah. And they will throw out so much at the end. They'll throw out like, not the beautiful fashion pieces, but if they buy like a cheap little dress that they throw on for one shot to,
Mhm.
more for a beauty shoot because, fashion shoots, they're using the fashion pieces, but still they'll add those little bits. You'll go the end of the day and like all the bras and underwear, a lot of the times are in the garbage. And it's like, oh, you can't. And
Yeah,
one of the less glamorous parts of my job is going through the garbage and taking stuff out. And
yeah. Well,
but
we're here to help. If you need some bags to accompany you to set, just
yeah.
drop us a line. No, I think, we actually have had several like theater companies come to us because,
Hmm.
they don't have a lot of space a lot of the time with their storage, and they might move from production to production, and they do need to declutter. So quite often we do get contacted by theater companies, less about film sets, but that is a great idea. I would love to tap into your network for that. We're here to help for
Sure,
sure.
sure. And are there any pieces you've gotten that are so interesting that you're just like, wow, just amazed by? I mean, since you do put some secondhand and you
I
mentioned
wish I
theater.
knew, honestly. I just felt so good about sending in these pieces. Like maybe they were items that you've had for many, many years, and which is great. So there's obviously some special pieces getting out there, which is great.
And wow, okay, it's been about going way past the time you said you would do. It's been about 40 minutes. Do you have a little more time or do you have
Yeah,
to
yeah, I'm fine.
okay,
I'm totally
great.
fine.
And what do you see as the future of fashion and fast fashion? First of all, do you think fast fashion is going to last the way it is? Or do you think our mindset's going to change?
I would really love to say that our mindset is going to change. I think it's going to be a little bit of a slow road because, like you said, not everyone can afford to be spending more. So hopefully there's a way in which there's going to be more brands that are producing more items that are at, palatable price points, accessible for more people, that are more sustainable or have some good practices. So, hopefully fast fashion decreases, hopefully some good stuff increases. And, what's very exciting for me is that not only are there these, new generation fabric houses that I mentioned that are coming that will have, lines that are made from textiles that have been broken down and made into something else. But, I think more and more there's going to be the adoption of people recycling with, services like ours. So even if they are buying things, that have some churn in their closet, old sheets, like, we take all household things as well. So not just, clothing, those things don't last forever. So at least there's a great solution to be able to, get rid of them out of your home sustainably.
And is there anything that any types of fabrics or any piece of clothing that people can't add?
Um,
But
we say no, not really. Just generally sort of anything that's like heavily stained, please give everything a really, really good wash before you include it in your retail bag. But we pretty much take everything. A little secret is that we can take shoes as well because they do have a very high resale value in thrift stores. And, the only problem is that our bags are made of cornstarch because we wanted to have a compostable product. So the only thing is like if there's anything that has like solid hardware, or heels, for example, like that can just break through the bag, in the post. So that's why we don't really talk about like taking, shoes, but we can even sort of take shoes to be resold, which is cool. But no, we pretty much take everything. It's good.
great. And I guess lastly, I know you've given some great tips. Are there any other final tips or final things you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Yeah, I would just say our sort of like most exciting thing that's launched over the last couple of months is our fabric scraps bag. So anyone out there who is a sewist, who quilts, who knits, needlepoint, anything like that, we now have our dedicated scraps bag. So basically you can have that sitting next to your sewing machine or tucked away in your little knitting bag. And for all of your like fabric bibs and bobs that, are offcuts from your crafty projects, you can put that in a retold scraps bag. So that's a great way, again, of sort of like expanding our reach to a new audience who might not have been thinking fashion and home. But we have literally been having requests from people who are crafty since we launched about like, will you take fabric scraps? And, we have always taken them in our normal yellow bags, but to be honest, on the back end, the workflow wasn't great. So that's why we created the dedicated scraps bag. It's going to a dedicated place, where our recycling partner can more easily recycle those items. And yeah, we're sort of breaking down all of those fabric scraps and giving them a second life, sort of with all of the shoddy process that I mentioned earlier. So that's one exciting thing that I'd love to get out there and have people check out, which is our scraps bag.
Great. Thank you so much. Where can everyone find you and follow you and stay updated?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So on Instagram, we're at Retold Recycling. We're on TikTok, LinkedIn. Keep an eye on all of our, social channels for all of our latest and greatest news. And then obviously come to retoldrecycling.com to be able to buy all of your bags. some special offers and things like that. So yes, love to spread the word about Retold. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Liz. Great to be here. Great chatting.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Why Get Wasted? Innovative Solutions to Climate Change. There are so many interesting people doing such great things in the climate space, and I'm really excited to bring them to you. They've inspired me so much, and I hope they inspire you too. So please come visit me and learn more at whygetwasted.com.